20-year-old Timothy Wilks appeared to have a lot going for him in early 2021. He was working toward a career as a HVAC technician and was only around a month away from graduating. Outside of work and his studies, Timothy had also developed an interest in YouTube, particularly the growing world of prank channels. He regularly watched videos where creators would approach unsuspecting people with elaborate and often extreme pranks. Eventually, Timothy decided that he wanted to make a prank video of his own. His idea was to stage a fake robbery. He was going to approach someone, making them believe they were being robbed, capture their reaction on camera, and then reveal the whole thing was a joke. There was just one problem with this plan. A large amount of the prank content Timothy had been watching wasn't actually spontaneous as it appeared. Timothy, however, didn't like this idea. He wanted a genuine reaction. And on February 5th, 2021, he decided to put his idea into action. That night, Timothy went to the Urban Air Trampoline Park in Hermitage, Tennessee. The park was bustling, with families and groups of friends enjoying their Friday evening. At around 9:25 p.m, Timothy approached a group of friends as they were making their way out towards the parking lot. But instead of simply pretending to rob them, Timothy took the prank to another level. He ran towards the group carrying a large butcher knife. To Timothy, this was supposed to be the moment where the prank came together. The group would panic, he would eventually reveal the truth, and finally he would have footage for a video he had been planning. But the people standing in front of him were oblivious to the fact it was a prank. One of them was 23-year-old David Starnes Jr. David was carrying a concealed firearm when he saw Timothy charging towards him with a knife. He had no reason to believe the situation was staged, and in a matter of seconds, David drew his firearm and fired. The shot struck Timothy and proved fatal. Sadly, Timothy passed away before emergency medical assistance could arrive. David remained at the scene and cooperated with police, explaining what happened. He was initially detained while the shooting was investigated, but was later released after authorities determined that he had acted in self-defense. No charges were brought against David. Timothy had set out that night hoping to create a video that would attract attention online. Instead, a prank that was supposed to end with a surprising reveal ended with a 20-year-old losing his life. The reaction he wanted was real, but so was the danger that came along with it. By the summer of 2017, Pedro and his girlfriend Mona Lisa had already started building a life together online. In November 2016, the couple created a YouTube channel called Mona Lisa and Fam, where they shared their lives through family vlogs, challenges, and various adventures. The channel wasn't producing huge numbers, but it was steadily growing. By the middle of 2017, they had attracted thousands of subscribers and were beginning to establish themselves as creators. Pedro, however, wanted more. He didn't want to simply document his life anymore. He wanted to create something that would get people talking. His solution was a secondary YouTube channel called Damn It Boy. The concept was built around extreme stunts and dangerous challenges, with Pedro hoping to make an immediate impact. Rather than building an audience, he wanted the first video to become a viral sensation, and he believed that he had come up with the perfect way to do so. His idea was to test whether a thick book could stop a .50 caliber bullet, but Pedro wasn't going to simply place the book on a stand and fire at it. He intended to hold the book directly in front of his body while Mona Lisa fired the weapon. It was an extremely dangerous idea, and Mona Lisa didn't want to do it. For almost 2 months, the couple went back and forth about the stunt. Pedro continued to insist that the book would protect him, eventually convincing Mona Lisa to take part. Then, on June 26, 2017, they decided to go through with it.
What's up, everybody? It's Damn It Boy. Why did I choose that name? Well, everything I'm gonna be showing you guys on my channel, you guys are gonna be saying, "Damn it, boy." My whole thing, I just love the adrenaline, the pumping, the near-death experiences. The point of this video is, I really just want to see if a .50 caliber bullet can go through a book. So, the ultimate test to see if this .50 caliber bullet will go through a book is, I'm just not going to just set it and just shoot it. No, I'm going to stand behind it, and Mona Lisa is going to shoot it.
At around 8 p.m, the couple set up the camera in the backyard of their home in Hallstatt, Minnesota. Pedro positioned himself in front of the camera with the book held in front of his chest. Mona Lisa stood several feet away with the weapon. Pedro was almost definite that the book would stop the bullet. However, once fired, the .50 caliber round passed straight through the book and into Pedro's body. The injury was catastrophic. Neighbours heard the gunshot and rushed towards the property. Around 30 people from the surrounding area would eventually gather at the scene, but there was nothing they could do to save Pedro. Among those who witnessed the aftermath was Pedro, Mona Lisa, and their 3-year-old daughter. There was another heartbreaking detail to the tragedy though. At the time of shooting, Mona Lisa was pregnant with the couple's second child. The stunt that was supposed to launch Pedro's new YouTube career had instead taken his life. Mona Lisa was taken into custody and later pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter. Despite the seriousness of the offence, the court took the circumstances surrounding Pedro's death into consideration. Rather than receiving the maximum possible sentence of 15 years, Mona Lisa was sentenced to 6 months in prison. What began as an attempt to create a viral video had ended with a family losing a father and an unborn child's parent. Pedro wanted his first video on Damn It Boy to be unforgettable, and it certainly was, but for reasons that nobody could have imagined. Tor Eckhoff, better known online as Apetor, was far from the typical YouTuber. Born in Norway in 1964, Tor worked at a paint factory while maintaining a completely different life online. His YouTube channel became known for videos that were difficult to categorize, combining extreme stunts, dark humor, and some very unusual habits. A lot of his content revolved around frozen lakes and the harsh Norwegian winter. He would skate across thin ice, climb into freezing cold water, and deliberately expose himself to temperatures that most people would struggle to tolerate even for a few minutes. And then there was the drinking. Tor regularly featured himself consuming entire bottles of vodka during his videos. He would also roll around in the snow wearing little to no clothing, and on some occasions even drink engine oil. Despite how bizarre some of his videos appeared, this was exactly what his audience came to the channel for. There was something unpredictable about Apetor. Nobody quite knew what he was going to do next, and over the years, that personality earned him a huge following. By the time of his final years on YouTube, more than 1 million people had subscribed to his channel. Tor was also open about the fact that the alcohol shown in his videos was real. He made it clear that his content wasn't intended to promote the vodka brand that he used, but simply reflected the kind of videos he wanted to make. Then, in November 2021, Tor turned 57. Just days after his birthday, he uploaded a video with an unusual title. "I am not dead, I am 57 today." At the time, there was no way of knowing how unsettling that title would become. On November 27th, Tor went to a frozen lake near Kongsberg, Norway, intending to record himself ice skating. Before heading onto the ice, he sent a message to the person he lived with, saying that everything was fine and that he was looking forward to getting some good footage. And that's exactly what he did. He began skating, recording himself on the ice. Sadly, he didn't predict that the ice wouldn't be strong enough to support him. Tor suddenly broke through the surface and fell into the freezing water. He immediately tried pulling himself back onto the ice, but every time he placed his weight on the surface, the weakened ice gave way beneath him. The problem was that the conditions weren't cold enough for the broken edges to quickly refreeze. Tor was trapped in the water. Eventually, a team of divers reached him and pulled him from the lake. He was transported by air ambulance to a nearby hospital where doctors attempted to resuscitate him. By then, Tor had spent far too long in the freezing water, and sadly, he couldn't be saved. Tor Eckhoff had spent years building a career around doing things most people would never even consider doing themselves. His unusual personality and willingness to push himself into dangerous situations had turned Apetor into a beloved figure among millions of viewers. Following his death, thousands of beloved fans left their condolences on his final videos. And years later, his channel continues to attract viewers around the world. For his audience, Apetor wasn't simply remembered as a man who made strange videos. He became a YouTube legend, someone who lived his life in a way that was completely his own, right up until his final video. For most people, travelling across the country means getting on a plane, driving a car, or booking a train ticket. James Stobe had a very different way of getting around. Known to his viewers as Stobe the Hobo, James built his YouTube channel around train hopping, secretly riding freight trains across the country and documenting the journey along the way. His videos weren't polished travel documentaries. Instead, they showed the reality of life on the rails, accompanied by James's spontaneous sense of humour, random observations, and one particularly unexpected talent: playing the piano. Over time, his channel grew to nearly 60,000 subscribers despite having only a little over 60 videos. James travelled through various parts of the country, including routes between places like Palm Beach and Jacksonville, regularly sharing footage from his journeys. His lifestyle was so unusual that some people who met him in everyday life didn't even believe his stories. There's comments from viewers claiming they had met James in bars where he would tell them that he travelled the country by hopping freight trains. Of course, expectedly, they assumed he was exaggerating. For his audience, that was part of what made Stobe so entertaining. His videos weren't about luxury or sightseeing. They were about seeing where next the train would take him, finding somewhere to eat, and hopefully ending the day with a pizza and a cold beer. But train hopping comes with obvious dangers. A person riding on a moving freight train can fall from the train, become trapped between cars, or be stuck by surrounding structures. For James, the risks involved were something that he had accepted as part of the lifestyle. Then, on November 8, 2017, something went terribly wrong. James was in Baltimore when he was involved in a fatal train accident. Unfortunately, very little reliable information about exactly what happened was made public. One account suggests that James fell from an overpass, while another claim suggests that his backpack became caught on a passing Amtrak train while he was standing on a bridge. Because of these conflicting accounts, the exact circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. James's sudden disappearance left his viewers with far more questions than answers. Many fans wanted to know what had happened and requested additional information from the Baltimore Police Department. However, they were also reminded to respect James's family and give them privacy during what was an incredibly difficult time. Years later, much of the mystery surrounding James Stobe's final moments remains, but his videos have continued to give viewers a glimpse into the unusual life that he chose to live. To the people who followed his journeys, James wasn't simply someone who rode freight trains. He was Stobe the hobo, a man who turned an unconventional way of life into a story worth sharing. And although his final journey ended in tragedy, the footage he left behind continues to tell that story.